Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all our lovely viewers for joining us today once again on the Lantern of Light. And I would like to welcome everybody on the Ramadan Noor Instacasts. Yes, so Alhamdulillah, we've been having a wonderful series during this Shahr Ramadan. And I hope that Ramadan has been going well for everybody. And we are in the final last nights of Ramadan. Subhanallah, the days have passed so quickly, and we are already now, in these final nights, and we are preparing ourselves to literally, uh, you know, give it a farewell, to say al-wida to it. So it is, sad. Obviously, we've got a bittersweet feeling because we also are welcoming Eid, inshallah, very soon. But Alhamdulillah, the days have really, really gone very nicely and very spiritually. I hope that all of us have attained that level of spirituality during, these days of Ramadan. So I'm just waiting for Sister Sarah Gulamhusain, who will be joining us today, inshallah. And we are going to talk about the blame game. Yes, that's right. So today we'll be having a very raw discussion where we will be exploring about what the blame game really means, and what are uh, some of the factors that affect it, and what are the reasons that lead it. So I'm just gonna add Sister Sarah. I hope she's there so we can have her on. And we would encourage all our viewers, please feel free to post in your comments and your questions. It would be great. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Sarah?
I'm good.
Ramadan.
To you as well. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Perfectly.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for once again joining us on today's Ramadan Noor Instacast. And we will be exploring into a very raw conversation and a lovely topic. I think so many people can resonate with this topic. It's called the blame game. And also, we're in this final days of Shahr Ramadan. I can't believe Ramadan has passed so quickly. Just the other day, we were having a discussion about,
quickly.
How we are enjoying Ramadan and how to spiritually, liven up our fast and our spirituality. And today we're already, in these last final days, inshallah, and ready to welcome Eid, inshallah, very soon. Right?
Yeah, time has really, really flown. Thank you so much for having me here again to talk about something so important.
No, it's actually an utmost pleasure and an honor. Jazakallah, Sister Sarah. So, for those who don't know, Sister Sarah Gulamhusain, she's the founder of Sakeena, and she is a psychologist. She also deals with clients who go through trauma, and she helps clients who want to regulate their emotions. And mashallah, there's a lot that she has done. She's helped a lot of people, mashallah. And mashallah, it's so lovely to have her on board with us today, because we will be talking about what is blame game. Often certain in our lives, most of the time, we have some inner chatters, and subconsciously our mind plays this blame game. For example, it could be his fault, her fault, their fault, but not my fault, right? So sometimes you don't know, why am I letting out this blame on somebody else? Is it because of a frustration? Is it because of an unexplained emotion? Is it because I'm failing to take up on a certain responsibility? So, Sister Sarah, let's get this straight. Let's first start off by understanding what is blame game? Like, what are certain acts that define this blame game? How do you know, for example, that I am actually playing the blame game?
It's an amazing topic, and I really thank you for having this platform to talk about these important things. We've all experienced this blame game situation in our life. right? At some point in time. It's essentially when a person tries to point the finger at someone else, right? That's essentially what it is. Something's happened, usually something's gone wrong. You'll hardly ever find people pointing the finger for something that's gone right, right? So usually something's gone wrong and there's a situation that can potentially escalate. And so you have a bunch of people just like pointing the finger and saying, oh, but actually this person said this or this person did this. And that's the blame game in a nutshell. It's very multifaceted. It's very multifaceted. Like just as you were saying, there's a lot of reasons why a person would kind of, indulge in something like that. But ultimately, it's to do with just pointing the finger and not kind of taking responsibility or being afraid of taking responsibility for something that's gone wrong.
Yeah, and what I want to really know is that is this like an inner feeling? Is this like an innate sort of habit of somebody, or is it caused by an environmental change? Like probably if you're living in a certain family, probably if you're in a certain circle, uh, is that the reason basically that happens to a certain individual?
So it's not innate. It's not something that you're born with. It's something that you learn. It's a learned response. Psychologically, it's something that you learn from childhood, right? So it's something that a child picks up from as young as 3-4 years of age. When you're in an environment where maybe other people are blaming, for example, so that's one situation. You're in an environment where people point the finger, they play the blame game, and you learn how to do that, right? Because what it is it communicates that you are not allowed to make a mistake, or you are not allowed to be in a situation that's bad or wrong. And when that happens, you need to step out of it. You have to make sure you have no part of it, right? So that's kind of the message that the child picks up. That's one situation. The other situation is on the complete opposite side, which is when you have parents, for example, or caregivers, like whoever's looking after the child, when they're let the child do whatever they want. It's very liberal parenting that doesn't really hold the child accountable for certain things that they do that's maybe not appropriate. So in that situation, this child growing up will just learn that nothing's ever my fault, right? And so again, they develop this intolerance of being accountable or something being their fault. So we have two extremes, in one extreme, the child is blamed a lot, and so they learn how to blame others. In the other extreme, the child is not blamed at all, and so they kind of develop this intolerance for making mistakes. And that can kind of lead to the blame game. So it's very much a learned thing. We learn it, if we don't learn it from our home situation, then we learn it from the community, from the school, which children spend a lot of time in school. But it is very much a learned thing, and it's very, very important. I have to say, I am really happy that I'm going to say this now because I'm really happy that you are addressing this topic, because I work with a lot of children, a lot of parents, and it's a big burden. I understand what kind of a big burden it is to be a parent, to be, someone who's responsible for another human being. I really understand that. And it's not easy. But blaming or being in a situation where you're pointing the finger at a child, it's always going to end badly. It's always going to communicate a wrong message to that child. So if you can be in a situation where you're not blaming at all, try to work towards that. Try to aim towards that, because that's going to be the best solution, I would say.
I totally agree with you on this, Sarah. I think we've been through a lot of situations like these, like especially I think in our communities. I mean, I'm not gonna lie or deny about the fact. It happens within every home. I think every community has this sort of you can say there is like a set of instructions that are passed down so that you tend to follow certain rules in your life, and if you don't, then it feels like you're not doing the right thing, and then you get blamed for it. And I personally, don't want this thing to pass on to our upcoming generations, because I know for a fact that there are a lot of people who have had to deal with their inner traumas throughout their lives, like, just sorting this matter out when it's not even actually their fault. I'm not going to say that it's the fault of our circles or families, but I think also culture somehow comes into playing with this, making us feel the victim. So like, how how do we know that these emotions are not being taken seriously by a person? Meaning, like, how does this steer somebody's emotions into failing to take up certain responsibilities and passing this blame game onto someone else?
That's a very good question. And I'll comment on what you said before, because that's very important. It is a learned thing, and yes, it can very much pass through generations. If you look at young mothers right now, families that are growing up, even us, as human beings, we will be able to remember a time in our childhood when we were blamed for something, and it leaves a scar. It leaves a wound, a feeling, something that, unless you deeply reflect and work on it, you're not going to be able to move past that one thing, right? And it can be for anything. So it really does leave a mark. We call it an inner child wound. Psychologically, that's what it's called, an inner child wound. And you can work on it. You can solve it. Once you realize it, you can get professional help and heal these wounds really slowly. But wouldn't it be so much better if we just started when our children are young, so that they don't have to go through the things that we've gone through. So yeah, it's very much, sorry, I lost my train of thought. But I was gonna say that it's very important to realize that it is generational, right? So it's like passing down from mother to child, even father to child. We're not gonna leave the fathers out of this. Fathers play the blame game as well. So it's important to know that it is generational. But I'll ask you to quickly repeat your question.
Yes.
If that's okay.
Yes, sure. So my question was that how can we stir our emotions when we fail to pick up our responsibilities on this, and we put the blame game on someone else?
So more than anything, it's very intertwined with culture. Like you said, in our past talks, we've talked about how our culture is got a lot to do with suppressing emotions, or not really expressing our emotions in a healthy way. And because we're not taught how to do that, or there is no safe environment to be able to express your emotions, you're more likely to just learn a very unhealthy way of expressing it. Like either lashing out in anger or really hiding it inside until it starts to manifest in different ways. And that is intricately tied with the blame game, because when you're in a situation where something's gone wrong, you immediately go into fight or flight mode, right? And fight or flight mode is a natural response, which is linked with anxiety, right? So either you'll stay there and start to defend yourself, say, I haven't done this wrong, this is not my fault, and the emotions that you're feeling are very conflicting, you start feeling anxious, or you're just gonna blame someone else and run away, right? Not physically run away, but mentally you're like, I got nothing to do with this, right? Don't drag me into this. I've got nothing to do with this. Even if you do have something to do with it, you're just gonna take that step back. You're not gonna take any responsibility for it. Why? Because you were trained from a young age to realize that if you do own up to your mistake, there's gonna be horrible punishments. You're going to have consequences, right?
Very true.
And that's another horrible thing, because punishments, there are many different ways about it, and there are many different schools of thoughts. Psychologically, punishments never result in anything positive at all whatsoever. You can, I'm not saying don't discipline your child. I just want to put a disclaimer there, because loads of people have taken my words out of context, but I'm not saying don't discipline your children. Discipline is very important.
Very true.
But there ways of disciplining your child without punishing them, right? There are
without money.
ways of doing exactly. You don't have
Like,
to
you know,
resort to something
sometimes
harsh.
parents don't realize this, but it's also, it acts more like a threaten. Like you're threatening your child sometimes
Mm,
psychologically and mentally. And uh, I think a lot of people would agree on this, especially who come from Khoja communities or our Indo community, Indo-Pak communities. Even the way when parents sometimes talk, their tone, their
mm, mm.
body language, all of that, I think sometimes gives that impression of the blame game on the child. And then when the child grows up, there's a lot that's being played in the child's
Yes,
mind. Like, they
yes.
make even a small slight mistake, they take that guilt on themselves, which is not a big deal if you see it, for example, in English families, like in Western culture. These things are not really taken seriously. So I think it's also got to do with our culture and our communities, basically. I think so. That's my opinion. But of course, you would know better. You're an expert in this. Now, okay, I have this question. So, like, is there a difference between, blaming someone and gaslighting? And if you can elaborate on what even gaslighting is, so people can understand.
So gaslighting is essentially when you're trying to convince someone else of a different reality. Okay, so something happened. Let's say I got into an argument with you, for example. Okay, I started the argument, you tried to defend yourself, and then later on, I tried to convince you that you're the one who started the argument and you're an argumentative person, for example, right?
That's
Hypothetically, I know that wouldn't happen, but hypothetically.
No, no,
So
but that's actually something so evil. Like, how can even people play this master game, mind game sometimes? Innocent
you
people like us wouldn't know how to do this.
some people do it consciously, other
Mhm.
people don't realize they're doing it because of this
Right.
intolerance towards making mistakes or towards being the person who starts an argument or who starts a situation. Sometimes you can say something and not think about the consequences of what you say, or not think that, oh, it can hurt someone, and then it turns into a big thing. And because you're so into this blame game mindset, you're just like, oh no, I don't want anything to do with this. I'm gonna throw the buck on her. I'm gonna make her believe that she was the one who started it, right?
Mm.
So that's gaslighting. It's a very toxic behavior. Again, it's a learned behavior. It's something that you learn, right? And it all comes from how you observe relationships as a child, as a teenager. So it's very important to have very healthy relationships modeled for you, because if those healthy relationships are not modeled for you, you'll be doing these things unconsciously. And it doesn't just hurt other people, it hurts yourself as well. Because then a person who always gaslights will not be able to tell the difference between reality and what they've made up in their mind. And that's,
Mm. But
again, that's a whole other thing that can cause a whole, a lot of other problems, which I'm not going to get into right now. But so gaslighting is linked with blaming, but it's not exactly the same. You can use the blame game to gaslight someone.
very true, very true. So it's more like intertwined and interconnected, right?
Yes, yes. Gaslighting is
Yeah.
kind of, you can consider it taking the step further.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so I hope that the viewers are, really enjoying this conversation. I can see that, mashallah, we've got a lot of people who are joining us today, who have joined us already and are gradually joining. And mashallah, I can see a lot of great comments. And also, I'm going to say salam to the Auntie. She's there and she's
Oh,
watching the
Assalamualaikum.
program. Yes. And even she's, mashallah, written a very nice point that she's really enjoying the program, and we're really discussing some very valid points, alhamdulillah. So, Sister Sarah, if I were to ask you about some practical tools that one can use to combat this blame game or this niggling thought in our mind, and if we could deeply do a self accountability of ourselves, a self introspection, what would you have to say?
I'll start by saying that it's not easy. It's not easy to accept when you've done something wrong, especially when we live in a culture, I would say, that expects us to be so perfect. I think women more than men, I'm not being gender biased, but yes, women are given a higher standard in this community, in our community, than men are. And it's sad because it makes us it makes us internalize the belief that we have to be a certain way. And if we're not a certain way, if we make a mistake, if we, say something wrong or do something wrong or get into a situation that's not comfortable, it's a big deal, right? It's something that is intolerable. We can't stand it. So I want us to really realize that it's okay to make a mistake. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all human beings. There's going to be situations where we have no clue what we're doing. We end up in a horrible situation. There's a reason you're there, right? I mean, we're Muslims, so we know that there is a reason we're in the situation we are in. Blaming or even trying to point the finger at someone else is never going to result in something conducive. It's never going to give you a solution.
Especially, I think mothers. Do you know why? Because what I feel when it comes to even a husband and wife's relationship, or a mother and father, let's say like that, maybe, from a child's viewpoint, yeah, a child is seeing mother is doing a lot of things in the house, and maybe the father has come back from work and he's exhausted and tired, and the child is messing things around, and the father just starts saying things very unintentionally that you're not doing enough, and that's it's like an indirect blame game because it's like I was told so much, and then the child, imagine what the child must be thinking from his or her perspective, that I feel like that's where it starts from. That's the root, that's the basic. Also, if a mother-in-law is at home and she is constantly blaming the daughter-in-law, that look at the child, he's so messy, she's so messy, it's because you are not doing enough, you're not giving enough time to the child. All these things really put such pressure on women psychologically and even physically and even mentally. The woman gets so drained. It's like we women go through this from a very young age all the way up to the end of our life. We really
and it builds
have to
and it builds a lot of insecurities. I've worked with so many clients who, it's very interesting because they tell me, for example, one client told me, when I'm getting ready in the morning and I look at myself in the mirror, I start feeling anxious. What if my scarf doesn't stay properly? What if my pimple is showing? What if this, that, or the other? And when we explored it, we realized it was because of the pressure put by the parents, from a young age, that look at your face, look at your scarf, look at this. I'm not saying that the parent is wrong, but there is a way of saying something, right? It's very important to try to put yourself in that person's shoes. Like, okay, let's say we all have different kind of beauties, we all have different features. Let's say someone has breakout. I've had so many breakouts in my life, but there is a way of trying to say, okay, if it's bothering you, let's do something about it, right? Let's try to let's explore different ways. But regardless of how you explore different ways of showing yourself, you're still beautiful. Just that small bit, a small sentence of reassurance, instead of putting that person in that situation where you're actually indirectly blaming them for how they look.
Very true.
And it can cause such a ripple effect into old age. The other example that I thought about when you were sharing was blaming someone unjustly or unfairly, right? When you're blaming someone, let's say a child, unjustly, when it's not their fault, that can really ripple into, when they grow up, their old age and their relationships with other people, because it really hits their self-esteem, their confidence, when they're building their self-identity. And it'll make them believe that no matter what they do, they're wrong. No matter what they do, they're to blame.
Exactly.
And that's not
In fact,
a pleasant mindset to have.
someone even commented here on the group, saying that on the chat box that just want to share that this blame game has a deep rooted trauma and constantly using toxic words and breaking a person's confidence. Very much related to
Definitely.
what you say, Sister Sarah. And that communication is key.
It
I think
is.
sometimes
Yeah.
people don't speak it out. It builds up, you know, and
Yeah,
you let
because
out.
we have this, yeah, because we have this culture of suppression. It's so easy to just keep things inside. But then also, it's possible to communicate what you're thinking and feeling in a way that comes across as blaming.
Yeah.
So again, be really careful with the words you're choosing. You know, you have to think, like they say, think twice before you speak. It's not just for fun. It's so that you make sure you're being considerate. You're not telling someone else what you wouldn't want to hear, you know?
Yeah. Very true.
And
Very true.
the other thing that I think, just to answer your question, was you said self-reflection. It's so important to self-reflect. You know, we even have it in Islam, like doing tadabbur, taking those 5 minutes every day, even before or after salah, or whenever you have time, to just reflect and ponder on not just your identity, your relationship with Allah, but just ponder on your day. What happened? You know, what did you say? What did you do? Was there something that made you uncomfortable? Was there something that you didn't like about what you did? That's okay, right? Because you're not supposed to be a perfect person. You're just supposed to try to improve those areas you don't like, right? So if you've gone through something during the day that hasn't set well with you, reflect on it and ask yourself, okay, what can I do next time to change it? You know, or what can I say next time that will communicate how I feel better?
Yeah. And
It's so easy to think that.
yeah,
Go
just
on, go on.
a genuine message that I also want to put out, very empathetically and being very non-judgmental. But like, what happens most of the time in societies as a young girl, the way I've seen, life and everything. I mean, at a very young age, just I mean, growing up on a daily basis and watching people. So like most of the time, the aunties usually, they get back to you on some things. Okay, so I just want to tell them that, sometimes maybe because of their frustrations in their lives, maybe because, they didn't get what they wanted. Maybe
Mm,
they were told off, maybe they were imperfect during their days.
mm,
And so they let out their frustrations on, the young generation today by
definitely.
telling them, you see, you're not as good as your mother, for example. I'm just giving an example. Or you're
Mm,
not good as your aunt. Your aunt used to do this and that during her time, and your mother used to do, and I used to do this and that. When I was your age, and look at you. You can't do this. So I just want to like very politely request the elders and all, as well as me and you, because I don't want to be that kind of a woman or a mother tomorrow to my child. I don't want to be an
mm,
auntie to other mothers' children, dictating them or doing the same thing basically what people did in the past. So
mm,
that's I think where we need to sort of stop this and break the generational trauma that's been
mm,
passing
mm.
down from years onto us. Yeah.
You're very right. You're very right. It's those kind of comparisons can send a message to that person to say that if you're not like so and so or this person, then you're not good enough, you know?
Yeah.
And that completely shatters a person's identity because everybody is unique. We're all different. We're all trying to build our sense of self. No two people are going to be the same, not even twins. I always say this. Not even twins are the same, right? So how can you expect me, for example, to be like my mother or my aunt or my sister, whoever it is? There's always going to be someone you're comparing to. It creates a toxic idea in people's minds. Maybe that's not what these people intend. Like you said, maybe that's what was done to them, so that's how they learn how to communicate. But it's very important to be mindful that those kind of words can really break a person's confidence, It can really hurt someone, and they can indirectly take it as, are you trying to tell me I'm not good enough? You know, especially
And
the younger people you tell, like,
yeah,
I would say children are more vulnerable. If someone were to tell me that now, I'd just be like, okay, alhamdulillah, khair, I'll try, you know? But when you're young, you're still learning about the world. You're still learning about yourself. So you take it very seriously, like, oh my God, this auntie told me this, you know?
exactly. No, very true. Even one word makes a huge, one adjective, sticks in the child's mind. Like even if a teacher at
Yeah.
schools tell you, like, you're really weak at this subject, ABCD subject, whatever. That child will go back home and will actually, keep repeating, oh, my teacher told me this today. It
Yep.
will sink in his mind. And as this person will grow up, he will always remember that my teacher had once told me that I was not good enough in this subject. And that person will have now this fear built or created within himself. Whenever he will approach that subject, he will always, think 10 times, like, am I going to perform well or not?
Yeah, it definitely, I can see someone saying it has an impact. It does. It does have an impact. Words have an impact. That's why we're told to think twice and thrice before saying something, you know?
Yeah.
Besides being empathetic, there's always a positive way to frame everything.
Yeah.
So try to frame something positively. Like in the example you just gave, saying that, oh, you're very weak in the subject. The teacher could have said, okay, this is how you're performing in the subject, but I know you can do better. Let's try. Let's improve. You have the capacity or the capability of doing it. And it's possible because sometimes all a person needs is just a push, some word of reassurance. Let's say something's gone wrong, I'll pick one of the previous examples. Something's gone wrong in the home environment. You said that the dad comes home and is blaming the mom and saying, you're not doing anything, right? A better thing to do would have been to the father should have excused himself if he was feeling frustrated, go to the bathroom, cool down, do wudu. Wudu calms you down faster than anything, and then have that conversation from a calmer mindset with your wife separately, not in front of the child, right? So that if it becomes an argument, it's just between you. It's not involving the child, right? Yeah. And I think that's important for the entire family. Like even if, let's say, the mother-in-law or sister-in-law is there, if you want to have an argument with your partner, have it in private. You don't have to involve anyone else.
Yes, and a shout out to the ladies out there who's watching our program right now. So we're not just rooting for the women's side, also for the men, because in some households it's also the other way. And let me give you this example. It's like, for example, the husband has come back home. He's tired. He had a very rough day. The wife has been doing her duties, but she's also frustrated and tired. And what she says is that, oh, you've gotten back from your job, but you were sitting all day, and I had to do all the physical chores at home, so I am really tired, and you're not doing anything. Actually, I'm doing more than you. Okay, so this is the other way around. So ladies, don't.
By the way, that example that you just gave, that's an example of gaslighting.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, because you're trying to create an image in your marriage that you're doing more than your partner is doing. And most probably that's not the case, right? Because both you and your partner will be pulling your weight around, all right? Unless it's very obvious that one person in the marriage is not doing anything at all, which I don't think that's ever the case. There's always something or the other that, you're sharing responsibilities for. So when you're trying to create that image in your partner's mind that I'm doing everything and you're doing nothing, that's gaslighting. So let's just try and be more mindful of the words we're using. I always say, superlatives, like everything, nothing, all the time, never. These are all superlatives. Try not to use them at all in your daily life. Try to make sure that you are giving a real picture of what's happening, So in that example, the wife could have said, I've really been working for the last, say, 3-4 hours, and I'm very exhausted, and my day hasn't been good. So I really need some help right now, or I need some space right now.
Yes.
Isn't that a better way to say something
Better.
rather than just
Right.
saying, look at you, this is what you're doing, blah, 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 you know? And it communicates clearly how you're feeling. And that's going to, if there are any kids around, they will understand. They'll say, oh, that's how you're supposed to say it. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Oh my God, I think we're gonna go forever today on this discussion. I'm
It's a very good topic.
yeah, it is, and I'm absolutely loving like sharing. These are some things that I'm personally learning from you as well and taking notes because for example, I just realized that this scenario, the one that we discussed right now, was gaslighting. I didn't know that.
Mm,
Imagine. So,
mm.
thank you for sharing that with me and for educating me. Most of the time, you see, people don't know that what am I actually
That's
doing
the
because it comes
thing.
so habitually, naturally to them. They don't realize that there's something wrong.
Yeah. And it's so important. And I'm glad you brought that up because this is what I'm trying to do. So with this platform, Sazesh, is I'm trying to educate not just like, teachers and professionals who are working with children, but I'm trying to create the information for parents as well because it's so important to know these things. I know for sure I've spoken to parents who wish they knew this before
Yeah.
they were trying to have children, or before they even considered having a family, because it's so important. This kind of education can really go a long way to make sure that you're nurturing healthy relationships within your family. And that's one of the things we provide is these workshops for mothers so that they can just learn about basic childhood development, learn about what a healthy relationship looks like, how to nurture, your family. Small, simple things that
Yeah.
are are very, very important, you
Very,
know.
very well addressed. Thank you so much, Sister Sarah. And
Anytime.
I really love today's conversation. I'm sure people are looking forward to a part two, maybe. I don't know if people are up
I
for
think
it.
so. I think we definitely need a part two. We need to discuss a few more scenarios, don't we?
Imagine if we can get like a lot of scenarios and we could have a solution to that, that would actually be great. So if there are
Definitely.
people who would want to share their scenarios with us, you can always DM us or you can always let us know if we can have a talk like this, and we can help out each other, yeah, because this is a platform where we want to support our sisters and our brothers. And, we just want to make life very good for everybody. So we can learn as well. Like, for example, I personally learned a lot today from Sister Sarah's conversation.
Mhm.
And I hope that I can apply that in my life as well, inshallah. And I can see that time is up now. We're
Yeah,
nearing the end of, yeah, see, time flies already.
it does.
Time flies so quick, but yeah, we have to end the program. Inshallah, Sister Naseem Walji is suggesting that we should have a
We
series
need to
for this.
see, inshallah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it would be
So,
amazing. There's so many different things we can explore. We can even explore gaslighting. Yes, it can also be very subtle, and the person wouldn't know. That is so true. That's something I didn't mention with gaslighting is most of the time you won't know because you're so the person who's gaslighting you can take you to so many different points. Most of the time you forget what the real issue is. It's a very, very intricate, subtle thing, and definitely worth exploring for sure.
yes, I can see a lot of people already rooting for part two. Sister Esther has also written that, and I think
Inshallah.
Sister Rosaria. And so we're getting a lot of
We'd
good
like to.
comments. Alhamdulillah, we're so glad. I just want to thank everybody for tuning on today's program. This is the support that we really want to see from you. If you are part of this platform and if you're tuning on our programs, we really get that encouragement to bring such topics to you so that we can discuss these raw nuggets with you that I feel are so important because there was a time when these things weren't addressed, like the way Sister Sarah said, something which should be discussed, premarital, pre-marriage courses and before having children and all of that. These are such
Mm,
crucial courses that really need to be addressed. And some have not been fortunate enough to have been addressed, with professionals on this. So, Alhamdulillah, that we are glad we got such professionals now on board with us who are ready to share their expertise with us. So, please, please tune in, share with your family and friends, spread the knowledge, let them know about these
Mm,
talks, and do join us. And I would like to thank Sister Sarah for being a part
thank you.
on today's Ramadan or Instacast. As usual, I love being with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really love our conversation. Thank you for having me on. And let's hope we can have a part two soon, inshallah.
Inshallah, inshallah. Thank you to all our viewers for tuning on today's program, and wish you a happy Eid Mubarak in
Yes,
advance. Yes,
definitely.
looking
Happy Eid, everyone, and to you
forward
as well. Yeah.
to Eid, inshallah. Inshallah, we'll come up with a part two with Sister Sarah, inshallah. So for then, until then, take care and Khud Hafiz, and have a nice, lovely evening. And this is your host, Sakeena Habib, signing off. Jazakallahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Duas for
Walaikum
everybody.
salam. Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah.